Professor Atkinson, you were speaking at our European Trade Union Institute's conference on where is inequality headed. You gave us a very broad picture historically as well as where we are now. Could you tell us a little bit of what you think where inequality is headed these days, and actually what public authorities could do to make sure it doesn't run too fast or too much in the direction that we don't want?
Well, there's certainly a sort of air of pessimism about what's happening in terms of inequality. And I was trying partly to say we shouldn't be too pessimistic because there has been a significant rise in inequality in many countries, but it hasn't actually continued, and we've managed to bring it to a stop in most countries in the last 10 years or so. But that's evolved action. And I suppose the most important message is that it is in our hands. And inequality is not something natural which somehow happens. It's something which is the result of decisions that we make individually and as societies.
Do you feel governments have to intervene again also in wage policy, for instance, much more than they did in the past?
I think that what's happening to wages is important in two respects. One is the sort of distribution of wages, and the fact that we've seen most of the increases in wages have happened at the very top in the last few years. And that is something which I think the governments are beginning to seek to influence, and it seems to me rightly they should do that. And the other is what's happening to wages in general, and the fact that much of the economic policies we're pursuing are going to actually have the effect of depressing wages. And that, I think, means we have to ask what happens to the other part of income, which we tend not to talk about, which is what happens to profits and capital incomes.
Yeah. You also mentioned something very interesting, which is this superstar theory of the rich, basically, which is kind of a new element. Could you say something about that?
Yes, I think superstars have always been with us, and there's always been people who are exceptional in some way and are able to attract substantial rewards for that. But the reach of people's success now is much wider because of technology. We can now hear people around the world or see them all around the world, and also, of course, globalization means they're known all around the world. And as a result of that, the very best performers on the sports field or in the arts or in management are able to get much higher salaries, whereas those a little down the chain are not doing so well. So I think that's been one of the main reasons why we've seen the very top racing away.
Maybe last question then. One particular issue that struck me where you're mentioning three, well, I would mention three, you mentioned two countries, I would mention three and just take them as one question. Germany and Sweden, where you see a rise in inequality quite considerably recently. In France, on the other hand, you don't see that, but actually when you look at what is in the news a lot, is some of the super rich in France, like Gérard Depardieu, leaving France and even not being a French citizen anymore. So what is happening in that country, and what is happening actually in Germany and in Sweden in terms of inequality?
Yes, I don't think we should make policy on the basis of one film actor. But I think that I don't think it's a particularly general tendency. In the case of the United Kingdom, we raised the top tax rate, and people said everyone would leave. But in fact, when we were checked, very few people had shown any sign of doing so. I think that what's more important in some ways is what's happened at the bottom of the scale. It's not the Gérard Depardieu so much as the people who were getting minimum wages and now are not getting that sort of protection. So in Germany there's now a growing problem of the working poor, people who actually are in full-time work, not earning enough per hour to keep their families at the poverty line. And that's something which has happened in Germany. It has not happened in France with its minimum wage provisions.